This is my latest installment of Violators of the Week. These are basically the politicians or the PACs who I have caught breaking the law and who have recently either been fined, sanctioned, or who are currently under investigation by the Public Disclosure Commission or the Washington State Legislative Ethics Commission. Now, I aspire to do these updates more often, but frankly, there's just so many, and I'm about to launch a whole bunch more. So I just really wanted to give you an update on where we're at currently, a kind of snapshot in time. So I confess that my usual focus is just to keep grinding away, and I usually don't tend to make a big deal out of the politicians that I catch breaking the law because, frankly, there's just so many. But I realize that if I don't tell you about them, well, it isn't like the corporate media is going to do it for us. So in case you want to review my track record, I do have a link down below where you can see the last 217 politicians, judges, PACs, and others who have been sanctioned, fined, or sued by the state for breaking the law based on the complaints that I've filed just over the past couple years. But before I get into this update, I just wanted to remind everyone to go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below and the like button if you like this video, and maybe leave a comment if you feel so inclined. None of this costs you anything except a few seconds of your time, but it appears to have an impact on the visibility of our videos, and therefore it has the potential to increase the number of people who actually get a chance to see them. If you like the content that I produce, help more people see them. Feel free to share it. That's the best way to get it out there. So let's get back to the politicians that I've caught breaking the law. There's so many, but let's catch up on some historic cases that have been languishing in the bowels of the bureaucracy without much follow-through. And first, I'm really talking about the Washington State Legislative Ethics complaint that I filed last year, which has currently ensnared about 11 Democrat state senators and legislators when they misuse public resources to promote political campaigns with Governor Inslee at some of his fake press conferences last year. Now, I already reported a few months ago that Governor Inslee got a free pass, basically, for his lawbreaking, which is typical of the Executive Ethics Board, which mostly exists to prevent Governor Inslee and his allies from being held accountable for much of their lawbreaking. Now, there was no surprise there, although Inslee was obviously annoyed that I dared question him or his authority. However, as I reported at that time, we're really still waiting just to see how the Washington State Legislative Ethics Board rules on the rest of the gang. And it has been over half a year since the complaint was filed. And honestly, I can't predict the result for sure. Sometimes the Legislative Ethics Board actually does enforce the law, but we're in a holding pattern, really, as we just wait to see what happens. On the public disclosure side of my complaint process, in the last few weeks, basically 3 complaints were processed with sanctions on the violators. There are 12 that are currently being investigated right now. One appears to have been lost, so I probably need to go and refile that one. And I expect to basically file another 40 or 50 complaints over the course of the next few weeks. Now, partly I've just had so many violations that I've found that I need to get them processed, and I need to stop being lazy and just finally get them filed. These will include some problems with AG Bob Ferguson, Secretary of State Steve Hobbs, and State Senator Manka Dhingra, who is running right now for the Attorney General. However, most of these complaints are against politicians who are not household names in Washington State, and I'm happy to give a more thorough update on those in the future. The 3 groups whose complaints I filed and were recently processed, that basically included a Support Ferndale Schools PAC, which had accepted illegal overlimit contributions a few years ago. They were basically forced to forfeit some funds to the state to restore compliance, and they were sanctioned by the PDC just a few weeks ago. The other 2 PACs were actually just some labor union shell PACs, which were also censored by the PDC, sanctioned, and this was basically for attempting to conceal the identity of their prime sponsor. Both of these PACs are now being shut down and dissolved as a result of my complaints. Now, I understand this sounds like small ball, but this is just a minor update in the middle of some more interesting investigations. For example, 2 city council members from Spokane are currently being investigated because of their violations. It's actually Zach Sapone and Betsy Wilkerson. Related to them are investigations into former director of the Department of Commerce and former state senator Lisa Brown, who is really now running for mayor of Spokane, and I actually filed that complaint weeks ago. And I also have exposed the legal violations of one of her kind of pet sponsored PACs in Spokane. Those are all active investigations, still in the process of being sorted out, and these guys are still flailing around pretending that there's nothing to see here. I have complaints still being investigated with misuse of public resources by a Paulsbo City Council member, a SeaTac City Council member who tried to conceal stuff from his financial affairs documents, and a Mukilteo Council member. There's many other examples out there, really. Another example is this failed leftist candidate who tried to run for the 37th Ledge District up in Seattle. And he's actually still being investigated for some fairly major financial shenanigans that he had with his campaign. But the final results of that one are also still pending. This one is actually from a complaint that I filed back in September of last year. So anyway, I have actually linked to all these cases down below. If you want to track the results of them yourself, actually you can log on to these cases at the PDC, and then you can send them your email, and they'll actually automatically update you when the status of these cases change. So there will be many more over the next couple weeks, and I believe that it's always worthwhile, really, for us to kind of track our elected officials, their predictable law breaking, which just seems to happen all the time, and do our best to hold them accountable. And I fully realize that it may seem like nothing ever happens to these guys. But I'll argue in response that part of the problem has been the fact that nobody's ever paying attention. And you can't outsource your freedom and liberty to defective and politically suspect organizations like the traditional corporate media who just won't cover the truth no matter what. So maybe if someone in political power tells them to report on something, they might do it. But otherwise, it isn't wise to expect to hear anything out of local media that hasn't been approved by the political powers in our state. And it's a sad state of things, but that is where it is. So if you want to organize your own politician and bureaucratic watch group with local people who don't mind doing a bit of research, I'm actually happy to come out and I will help train activists around the state who are willing to do this. It can be a little complex at times, but it does get easier the more you do it. Practice makes perfect, and if you want to know the truth, sometimes it's worth learning some new skills. If you can get a group of people organized to do this in your community, I'm happy to come out and I will help you. Just contact me on my website down below and then let me know. I'm happy to come out and help. Now, for now, I want to close this video with just a few reminders for you to consider as we proceed with life and the reality of suffering under the incompetence and corruption of our political class in this country. We have to remember that outsourcing our freedom to someone else to do things for us is not the best plan. We have to do this type of work ourselves. And I wish we could just elect angels to be our political leaders, but that's not realistic. And the results of elections historically demonstrate that most people are really not paying attention to the clowns that they put into local office. We can survive their corruption, incompetence, and the harm they inflict on our communities, but we don't have to put up with them fossilizing in office forever. So here is what I suggest that you do. First, come up with a local plan. Maybe for your school board, your city council, your fire commission, or your county government. Just pick the one that impacts you or your family the most, or the one that interests you the most. Start doing your research right now. Go to meetings, read the minutes, track the decisions, and research the politicians occupying these seats, as well as the senior bureaucrats who kind of run the show. Only by knowing the truth can you formulate a realistic plan for change. Number two, just create a local team of people who care about the same issues that you care about. Work together to compare notes, review documents, study the players, and come up with solutions. Many hands oftentimes make light work, and your neighbors or other local interested people will often make the very best teammates you can find. Finally, implement your plan. Maybe this involves exposing the truth about your local government. Maybe this involves recruiting people to run for office, and then helping them do so. Regardless, playing offense is the best defense for liberty and freedom for you and your community. But it starts with you, not somebody else. You have to start showing up because, in the end, the future belongs to those who show up.